Mataji. Thank you for joining this session. We will start with a nice kirtan. We'll do the prayers and then we will go into the discussion of the today's topic. So, all the seniors, Vaishnavas in this group, please allow me to start the session today. Hare Krishna. Vrindavana Ramyasthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Manohara Vrindavana Ramyasthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Manohara Abharta Kalindi Nire Rajahamsa Keli Kare Tahe Shobhe Kanaka Kama Abharta Kalindi Nire Rajahamsa Keli Kare Tahe Shobhe Kanaka Kamala Vrindavana Ramyasthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Manohara Tara Madhye Hemapita Astadale Bestita Astadale Pradhana Naika Tara Madhye Hematita Astadale Bestita Astadale Pradhana Naika Tara Madhye Ratnasane Base Acche Doi Chane Shama Sange Sundari Radhika Tara Madhye Ratnasane Base Acche Doi Chane Shama Sange Sundari Radhika Vrindavana Ramyasthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Manohara Orupala Banyarasi Amiya Pariche Kasi Asya Parihasa Sambhashane Orupala Vanyarasi Amiya Pariche Kasi Asya Parihasa Sambhashane Narottama Dasa Koye Nitya Leela Sukha Moye Sadhai Surva Mora Mane Narottama Dasa Koye Nitya Leela Sukha Moye Sadhai Surva Mora Mane Vrindavana Ramyasthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Manohara Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, 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 Hari Bol. Ram Sankirtan ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धश्च ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितां च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमो ब्रह्मण्याय देवाय गो ब्राह्मणहिताय च जगद्दीताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, Prabhujis and Matajis. I'd like to start this session thanking His Grace Lilananda Prabhu for giving me a wonderful opportunity to talk about chapter 16 in Canto 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. I also would like to thank Praveen Prabhu for giving me this opportunity today. So, thank you very much, all Prabhujis and Matajis, for joining this session. So today we are going to discuss about chapter 16 of Canto 1 in Srimad Bhagavatam. And the title of this chapter is How Parikshit Maharaj Received the Age of Kali. So it's a very elaborated and very big chapter, which has about 36 shlokas and have very interesting conversations. So I'll just give you next couple of minutes of how is the plot and what are the sequences of this chapter, and then we will get into the discussion. So the plot begins where Suta Goswami is explaining about how Parikshit Maharaj actually taken up the kingdom and started ruling after the disappearance of Pandavas, and then followed by probably his agents in this kingdom. In his kingdom, comes to him with the news that the influence of Kali is increasing day to day, and they can very clearly see the how things are moving when it comes to the progress of Kali and how people are getting in his kingdom influenced with the age of Kali, and then which does not go well with Parikshit Maharaj, and being a very noble and great leader, he would want to take a tour of his kingdom and also see how the influence of influence of Kali is spreading all across his kingdom, and he want to take the necessary measures to correct them. So in that process, when he starts the tour, he actually sees Kali himself beating a cow, and then he probably he'll take necessary steps and punishes Kali, and then there are some very interesting conversation happens between Dharma and the Mother Earth. So which only Parikshit Maharaj has sense of hearing to it. Nobody can see and hear those things. So it's a very interesting conversation where Dharma in the form of a bull with only one leg and three legs are chopped off, where you can see in the photograph which is given here, and the cow in the form of a Mother Earth. They exchange very interesting conversations about the age of Kali and how things are progressing and what will be the situation, right? And probably the discussion between both of them is so interesting that we can actually see what are things happening. Probably this conversation must be around 5,000 years back, but what is happening in today's society, we can very clearly see. It is very, very evident the kind of discussions that both bull and cow have, right, in between them, and what the examples what we see today are very, very apt. So that's the overall plot, and then probably after this, Parikshit Maharaj also goes on a tour of overall his kingdom, and he conquers a lot of land, and he hears all the glories of his forefathers and what is the relation that they had with Lord Krishna, and what happened after Lord Krishna's disappearance from this earth is all very clearly elaborated and discussed in this chapter. Very, very interesting chapter and very, very lengthy chapter as well. We'll try to finish as much as possible. I'm sure we should be able to finish in next 1 hour, 10 minutes time. And probably, with the interest of time, I may not be able to go into detail of every shloka or every purport. We'll try and cover most of it, or probably, we'll try and see as much as possible to cover the most of the essence of this chapter. Thank you. So based on the sequences or the plot of this chapter, we can divide this into 5 sections. Total, shloka number 1 to shloka number 36. So, I kind of tried to divide this into the 5 sections. So section 1, shloka number 1 to shloka number 4. So this is basically Sutta Goswami explains Maharaj Parikshit, who was ruling under the guidance of Brahmana, punished the master of Kali Yuga, who was causing pain to the cow and bull. This is the opening of this chapter, basically. And then we go into the next section, second section from chapter 6, shloka 5 to shloka 9, where Saunaka Rishi inquires about the punishment of Kali and the glories of hearing pastimes of Lord, the Lord, basically Lord Krishna. And then we get into the third section. We get into the third section, which starts from shloka number 10 to shloka number 16. Sutta Goswami explains that after Maharaj Parikshit perceives the influence of age of Kali in his kingdom, he initiates the tour of his kingdom. While touring, he hears glories of Pandavas. Right, and fourth section is verse from 17 to 24, where Dharma, wandering in the form of a bull, inquires from Mother Earth in the form of cow about the cause of Earth's miserable condition. In the last section, 25 to 36, where cow in the form of Mother Earth replies to Dharma in the form of a bull, that her misery is caused by her separation from Krishna's presence and by an increase of Kali's influence due to Krishna's absence. So Maharaja Parikshit then arrives. So out of this, section 4 and section 5 are extremely important. Not that 1, 2, 3 are not important, but section 4 and 5 of this entire chapter are very, very important, where Dharma in the form of a bull asks many questions to Mother Earth on what is her condition, why is she like this, and Mother Earth replies on all the questions asked by Dharma. So very, very interesting conversation, as I said, right? So as I said, from 25, where Mother Earth replies, to 36 are extremely important, right? 26 to 30th, Mother Earth talks about the 40 eternal qualities of Supreme Personality of Godhead, his pastimes of Lord, and now is over on Earth. In his absence, Kali has taken over, right? So 26 to 30 talks about that. And 31 to 36, the last section, Mother Earth explains how the Lord helps his devotees in distress, who therefore can bear the separation from Lord time, the time King Parikshit, the bank of river Saraswati. So that ends the chapter at 36, right? So these 5 sections, as we spoke, are very, very important. And out of that, the last 2 sections, which probably talks about the discussion between cow and a bull, are extremely interesting. So we'll see how they goes. The shloka number 1 talks about, Sutta Uvacha Tata Parikshit Vijavarsya Siksaya Mahim Maha Bhagavataha Sasasaha Yata Hi Sutyam Abhijatviko with Samadhisan Vipra Mahad Gunasthatha. So the very first shloka, where Sutta Uvacha, Sutta Muni is saying, O learned Brahmanas, Maharaja Parikshit then began to rule over the world as a great devotee of Lord under the instructions of the best of the twice born Brahmanas. He ruled by those great qualities which were foretold by expert astrologers at the time of his birth. This is the opening shloka of this chapter, where Sutta Goswami is explaining to all his, the followers about how Maharaj Parikshit has begun to rule over the world, and and how he appointed Brahmanas, and what was told during his birth by the astrologers, and everything is coming true. Right. So shloka 2 translates as King Parikshit married the daughter of King Uttara and begot 4 sons headed by Maharaja Janamejaya. So when we talk about the purports, and when we talk about some important points, I'll probably discuss about few points about Maharaja Janamejaya. And third shloka translates as Maharaj Parikshit, after having selected Krupacharya for guidance as a spiritual master, performed 3 horse sacrifices on the banks of the Ganges. So these were executed with sufficient rewards for the attendants, and at these sacrifices, even the common man could see demigods. So this is one of the very, very important shlokas, where it talks about that Parikshit Maharaj is appointed Kripacharya as his spiritual master, and how he progressed is what we will discuss. Shloka 4 talks about, once when Maharaj Parikshit was on his way to conquer, he saw the master of Kali Yuga, who was lower than a Shudra, disguised as a king and hurting the legs of a cow and a bull. The king at once caught hold of him to deal with sufficient punishment. So now we will go into some of the important points from the purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. That what Prabhupada has given all these important points from the purports. With the interest of the time, I have kind of tried to collate some important points from the purports for all these shlokas. So number one talks about how Parikshit Maharaj has a Brahmanic council in his kingdom and ruled as per the Brahmana's instructions. I think this is very, very important in those days. Some of the kings have considered the Brahmanas who are much more important than themselves, right? Though they are formally able to take decisions and rule the kingdom, they ruled it as per the instructions given by Brahmanas. And why? Because they believe that Brahmanas have all the knowledge, all the Vedic knowledge, and they know what is right and what is wrong, what is dharmic and what is dharmic. So Maharaj Parikshit, who was a descendant of Pandavas and a very noble leader, right, noble king, who wanted to rule his kingdom in a very dharmic way, as in the same way appointed a Brahmanic council, right, and ruled the kingdom as per the Brahmanic council instructions that he received. Right, and married with a daughter of King Uttara and begot 4 sons headed by Maharaj Janamejaya. So I'm sure all of you would have heard about Maharaj Janamejaya, right? So I'll just reiterate a minute on how great Maharaj Janamejaya is. So as it is mentioned, Maharaj Janamejaya is the elder son of the Parikshit Maharaj. And if you look at the Mahabharata, the entire epic of Mahabharata, the starting Parvam of Mahabharata, which is called as Adi Parvam, actually starts with Janamejaya conducting this sacrifice. So the sacrifice is basically to kill all the snakes, because one of the snakes have actually killed, he believed that it's killed, reason for his father's death. So he conducted a sacrifice to kill all the snakes. And that's where a lot of demigods and Vyasadev, he himself comes and explains him how things are and requests him to stop the yajna. And that's where he stopped the yajna and questions Vedavyasa on what happens, what exactly happened, why his father was killed, and how great his forefathers were. So the entire Mahabharata plots of Adi Parvam starts with Janamejaya conducting the sacrifice to kill all the snakes. So such a great king he was. And then one of the shlokas, Prabhupada talks about the importance of Gotra, which is related to science, especially in the plot where Maharaj Parikshit marries King Uttara, which is supposed to be her cousin. So he talks about what is Gotra and how it is related to the science and how it is to the bloodline. Right? There is a lot of misconception in the society that cousins cannot be married, but as long as Prabhupada explains in the purport that as long as they are not from the same Gotra, it is allowed to marry. And also Prabhupada quotes the example of Arjuna marrying Subhadra Mai, that though they are being cousins. So as long as it is not in the same Gotra, which is scientifically not in the same bloodline, it is still allowed to get married. So it explains that Parikshit Maharaj has performed 3 horse sacrifices, which is not at all a small thing in those days, right? Under the guidance of the spiritual master Kripacharya. And one of the purports, Prabhupada also insists about the need of a spiritual master and importance of a spiritual master, right? So this is irrespective of the age and irrespective of the time and situations. I think the importance of a spiritual master is very, very clearly elaborated in one of the purports. And as a noble leader, as an ideal ruler, Parikshit Maharaj has punished Kali. So he had to punish Kali because he could clearly see that the influence of Kali is significantly increasing in his kingdom, and he himself saw Kali disguised as or dressed in the form of a king and hurting a cow by himself. So he had to take, as ideal ruler, Parikshit Maharaj had to take an immediate action to stop it and punish Kali. And purport of 16th sloka, 4th sloka of 16th chapter, Prabhupada talks about how worthless men with the modes of lower class men who have no higher ambition in life come to the helm of the state management. Such men at the post of a king are sure to first hurt the cow and the Brahmanic culture, thereby pushing all the society towards the head. So Prabhupada talks about this while explaining why did Parikshit Maharaj had to punish Kali, right? So this is exactly what happens, and we are very much evidently seeing that in today's world, where people of low class and lower mindset, who does not have higher ambitions in life, they become the leaders or the rulers of the state, and they push the entire society towards, right? So we are seeing, how cows were being slaughtered, and how brahmanas are being, ignored in today's society, right? In the state very much where we live, we could see that there are permissions given left, right, center for slaughterhouses where cows and bulls are being slaughtered every day, right? So which is a very unfortunate situation, and Prabhupada predicted this long back, and in fact Bhagavatam predicted it thousands of years back that this is going to happen in Kali Yuga. So we'll go to the second section of this chapter, and Saunaka Muni asks Sutta Goswami, Prabhuji and Matajis, does one of you want to read this translation? Any of you?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Santosha, please go.
Translation. Shaunaka Rishi inquired, why did Maharaj Parikshit simply punish him, since he was the lowest of the Shudras, having dressed as a king and having struck a cow on the leg? Please describe all these incidents if they relate to the topics of Lord Krishna.
Hare Krishna. The next translation, anyone want to read? Prabhuji and Matajis?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Satya Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah. Translation. The devotees of the Lord are accustomed to licking up the honey available from the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the use of topics which simply waste one's valuable life? Hare Krishna.
Anyone on the next shloka? Translation. Yes, Prabhuji.
Translation. O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by calling the controller of the death, Yamaraja. Hare Krishna.
These shlokas, if you look at it, the very first, the shloka number 5, the translation, it clearly explains how rishis and great sages in those days, how attached they are towards cows, and just they when they understood, or when they got to know that Kali is beating cow itself, they are very much disturbed. So that's what they say. Why should we talk about all these things, right? When we talk about the purpose and important points, I will explain that, right? So they are in the state of shock when they heard that cow is getting beaten, right? They could not even imagine in those days. So for example, if we look at such incidents in today's world, they're pretty small, because comparison to cows being slaughtered every day, cow is just beating is not a big thing for us. But in those days, the rishis, the great sages, were disturbed by listening that cows were getting beaten up in this Kali Yuga, right? Translation 8, anyone?
Hare Krishna. As long as Yamaraja, who causes everyone's death, is present here, no one shall meet with death. The great sages have invited the controller of death, Yamaraja, who is the representative of the Lord. Living beings who are under his grip should take advantage by hearing the deathless nectar in the form of this narration of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord.
Right. The last shloka of this section. Anyone want to read this translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing activities that are right for naught.
Hare Krishna. We'll talk about some important points from the purport. So 5 to 9 shlokas, important points. Number 1, cleanliness, mercy, and austerity is completely washed off in Kali Yuga. Thoughtfulness is existing to some extent. So as explained in one of the purpose, the very first purport of 5th shloka, Prabhupada, right, on how Kali Yuga is progressing and what is happening, he explains very, very clearly, right? So cleanliness, we probably know at that time they have already seen that, how the men and women are behaving, and how the genuinity of cleanliness is completely washed off. In mercy, they themselves can see that the cows are being slaughtered. Forget about any other animals, right? So they could clearly see that the cows and bulls are being slaughtered. And austerity, people are indulged in material activities, and they forgot completely about the God and dharmic rituals. Is what it is very, very clearly explained in the purport. And Prabhupada also says that thoughtfulness to some extent is still existing. So why does he say that? Because we could still see that in today's world, right? To some extent, thoughtfulness is still there. How? At least some kind of the bribery, people who are accepting briberies, and at some level they're being caught, right? If not on a daily basis, it is at some level they're being caught and they're being punished, if not everyone. So that's a clear example of, at least to some extent, the thoughtfulness is existing in Kali Yuga still. Right. Dharma has taken a form of a bull, and earth has taken a form of a cow. So I will explain how this and why, probably as we progress, and when we get into the discussion between the cow and earth. And Saunaka and the rishis are not happy with the situation of the cow and wanted to hear only about Supreme Lord Krishna. So looking at, just hearing about one line that, Kali has beaten cow, and they are got completely disturbed with this, right? And they immediately, the Saunakas and other rishis said, Sutta Goswami, why are you telling about us, telling us about all these things, which is very, very distressing and disheartening. Please don't tell about all these things. We are here to hear Krishna Katha. Right, so please talk to us about Supreme Lord, is what they have requested Sutta Goswami, right? And Sutta Goswami explains that there are many topics in Bhagavatam about sociology, politics, economics, cultural affairs, but all of them are in relation with Krishna, and therefore all of them are worth hearing. Krishna is the purifying ingredient in all matters, regardless of what they are. So Prabhupada very clearly explains in the purports that there is nothing about Bhagavatam that which is bored, right? Which is not interesting as such, because though there are different topics related to sociology, politics, economics, and cultural affairs, everything is related to Krishna, right? Anything in Bhagavatam is related to Krishna. That's the reason he says this nectar is so tasty and so beautiful. And Prabhupada also goes saying that what is the use of talking something or hearing something, even if it is so soothing, right? And if it is not related to Krishna, even if it causes lot of soothness to your heart and mind, that you're very happy to listen to those things, if there is no Krishna, what is the point? And Prabhupada goes saying that devotees should avoid such kind of conversations and such kind of discussions, right? This is exactly it. Any topic related to Lord Krishna is transcendental, and in fact anything should be Lord Krishna centric. Devotees should not engage anything which does not have Krishna in it. Any topic, however pleasant, is not worth hearing if it is devoid of its relationship to Krishna. Right? The living entity, as he develops from the lower animal to the higher human being, and gradually to the higher intelligence, becomes anxious to get free from the clutches of death. So that's the reason the great rishis there, they have invited Yamaraj, because Yamaraj is a great devotee of Lord, and he likes to hear about God and participate in the Sankirtans, discussions of the Lord. The modern scientist, Prabhupada also says that modern scientists try to avoid death by psychochemical advancement of knowledge, but at last the controller of death, Yamaraj, is so cruel that he does not spare even the very life of the scientist himself. The scientist who puts forward the theory of stopping death by advancement of scientific knowledge becomes himself a victim of death when he is called by Yamaraj. Right, so that's the reason the rishis, the only hope of suspending the cruel slaughtering process of Yamaraj is to call him to hear the chant the holy name of Lord. Yamaraj is a great devotee of Lord, as we discussed, right? He's like to be invited to the kirtans. So the great sages headed by Saunaka and other invited Yamaraj to attend the sacrifice performed at Naimisharanya. Right. So this ends the second section, 5 to 9, 9th shloka of this chapter. We will go into the third section, chapter 10. Sorry, shloka 10. The Suta Goswami said, while Maharaj Parikshit was residing in the capital of Kuru Empire, the symptoms of the age of Kali began to infiltrate within the jurisdiction of his state. When he learned about this, he did not think the matter very palatable. This did, however, give him a chance to fight. He took up his bows and arrows and prepared himself for the military activities. When Parikshit Maharaj got to know through his agents that the significance of Kali is increasing, he did not take it light. So he wanted to make the necessary corrections. Right, as a noble leader, as a noble king, it is very much required. Shloka 11, Prabhuji and Mataji, anyone want to read the translation?
Hare Krishna, Dasraj Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Giraj.
Wonderful. Text 11. Maharaja Parikshit sat on a chariot drawn by black horses. His flag was marked with the sign of a lion. Being so decorated and surrounded by charioteers, cavalry, elephants, and infantry soldiers, he left the capital to conquer in all directions.
Hare Krishna. Then translation of Shloka 12. Anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please.
Yeah. 12 translation. Maharaj Parikshit then conquered all parts of the earthly planet. Bhadrashrava, Ketumala, Bharata, the northern Kuru, Kimpurusa, etc. And extracted tributes from their respective rulers. Sorry,
Correct.
Prabhuji. I cannot see the last line.
Respective rulers, Prabhu.
Yeah,
and exacted tributes from their respective rulers. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. The 13th, 14th, 15th, these shlokas are very, very important. And Prabhupada gives very nice purport translation to this. So I'll read that and probably we will discuss something about this. Wherever the king visited, King Parikshit visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashwathama. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and Pruta due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklace and clothing. So in this purport, Prabhupada explains, how what are the qualities of a great devotee, right? And he quotes example of Parikshit Maharaj, how happy he was to hear about the glories of Lord Krishna, right? And he was very, very much satisfied, and and whoever has sung the glories of Lord Krishna, he kind of awarded all of them with valuable necklaces, golds, clothing, and everything. Right, so Prabhupada goes to explain that that is one of the best qualities of a devotee, where he is always happy to hear about the Lord and the glories of Lord. So wherever it is explained, wherever Parikshit Maharaj goes, right, people were talking about his great forefathers and what is the relation that they held with Lord Krishna, and how Lord Krishna has reciprocated their love towards them. And in the next shloka, it also explains very, very clearly, wonderful shloka, right? Probably we will read this shloka as well, right? Shloka number 16 explains what is the kind of relation Pandavas and Krishna, Lord Krishna used to share, right? So this shloka explains that how Krishna reciprocated their love in what are the forms. So this shloka goes like this. It says, Saratya Parasada Sevana Sakya Dautya Virasananu Nanugamana Sthavana Pranaman Snigdeshu Pandusu Jagat Pranatim cha Vishnur Bhaktim Karoti Nirpratis Charanaravinde. Right. So this shloka explains how Krishna reciprocated, in how many ways that he reciprocated the love of Pandava. So it says, Maharaj Parikshit heard out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of services to malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from a chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc. According to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with the devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Right. So, Prabhupada explains this purport very, very nicely, on how Krishna has actually reciprocated the love of Pandavas, and Pandavas were ready to give up anything for the sake of Krishna, and Krishna actually showed that love towards them. It is also explained in Mahabharata that how Krishna used to ride the chariot for Arjuna. Right, the Krishna himself was riding the chariot, and how Arjuna from behind, right, giving him the directions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Right, so it is explained that Arjuna used to stand at the back in the chariot, and with his leg, the thumb with the thumbnail or this leg, he used to poke on the back of Krishna, which is a signal to show him a particular direction on how he should go. And imagine Lord Krishna himself taking the direction from Arjuna, right, and is being poked from behind with the leg, right. So that's the great love Krishna displays to his devotees. And Pandavas also, they never blamed Krishna for anything that they have went through, even if they are having their kingdoms and their palaces. They were always in the transcendental service of Krishna. Even when they are in the forest having nothing, they continued their service towards Lord Krishna. Right, so that's where after coming back from Aranyavasa, Krishna himself went as a messenger to the Kuru dynasty, to Duryodhana, to talk about the 5 towns that they need at least. Right, so that's the reciprocation of Krishna when somebody loves him unconditionally. So 10 to 16, some of the important points. So Maharaja Parikshit was so perfect that he was sitting in his capital peacefully, but he got the news that the symptoms of age of Kali had already infiltrated into the jurisdiction of his state, and he did not like this news. So immediately he took up his bow and arrow and prepared himself for the military activities. And symptoms of the Kali, age of Kali, Prabhupada talks in this one of the purports very clearly that what are the signs of or the symptoms of the Kali which were shown, right, already in the kingdom. Right, so very clearly illicit connection with women, indulgence in meat eating, who are also called mlechas, and intoxication and taking pleasure in gambling. Right, so these are the 4 symptoms that the age of Kali, which are very, very significant, and Parikshit Maharaj also observed in his kingdom. And it also explains, Prabhupada gives a very, very, very nice example of a reign, right? How a king or the state should save the kingdom or the people of the kingdom, right? With an example of a reign. So Prabhupada says, reign is predestined, and yet people take precautions to protect themselves. Similarly, in the age of Kali, the symptoms as above mentioned are sure to infiltrate into the social life, but it is duty of the state to save the citizens from the association of the agents of age of Kali, unfortunately, which is not happening in today's society. Right, so ideally the rulers of today's society should help the people of the state to overcome the age of Kali. Right, so I was going to one of the lectures of His Grace Radhasham Prabhu, and Radhasham Prabhu goes on saying that probably government should make it mandatory to conduct or to have the Ekadashi Vrat every once in a 15 days or once in a fortnight, and temples should be built, and the dharmas need to be propagated from the temple, right, and a lot of preaching should go on. But what exactly happening is the opposite now, right? The government is encouraging the citizens, right, by opening liquor shops everywhere to go and have liquor, happily enjoy, right? And probably the meat eating. A lot of very modern outlets are coming up for the meat, which are which are different cuts or delivered at your home and all those things, right? And of course, though it is not legal, a lot of places they still have gambling and openly run everywhere. So government turns a blind eye towards it, right? So unfortunately, in a lot of areas of this world, we see that prostitution is being legalized, and probably the government itself is in today's world. I mean, if we see one of the recent verdicts of a Supreme Court, the government itself is giving a verdict that as long as women is fine, they go on to have sex with any number of men, right? That kind of verdicts what they are giving. We are seeing the sad state of today's society, which is predicted thousands of years back. So it is the duty of the king to give such protection, and Maharaj Parikshit was perfectly right when he prepared himself to fight. So Maharaj Parikshit, who was ruling his kingdom under the instruction of a great Brahmanic council, is very much aware that to some extent that he cannot stop, but he will have to fight. So being a noble king and ideal leader, he want to put his citizens into the right path. Therefore, he prepared to fight against Kali. So wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, which we have already discussed, right? And Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees like Pandavas. The Lord was for them supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipable deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus the Lord also reciprocated the feelings of Pandavas, which we have already discussed. Right. So the last point is also very, very important. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of Lord. And by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. So Arjuna's example is very, 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 very good example, and very evident. How Pandavas are ready to sacrifice anything for the sake of Lord. We all know that Arjuna did not want to fight. He was worried, and he went to Krishna asking for a guidance. And Krishna just said, he explained the entire Bhagavad Gita to Pandavas and to Arjuna, and finally he said, perform your duty for my sake. Who are you to decide? And I will decide everything. And probably, he went on giving the entire Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and finally Arjuna was convinced and said, okay, I'll just do whatever you say. Right, so tell me what you want me to do. I'll go and fight for your sake. That's what they have reciprocated Krishna's mercy. Shloka number 17. So now Sutta Goswami says, now you may hear from me of what happened while Maharaj Parikshit was passing his days hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in the thought of them. Right, and so Sutta Goswami goes on talking about the next sections. The personality of religious principle Dharma was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of earth in the form of a cow, who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus Dharma questioned the earth as follows. So now we are getting into the important part of this the chapter, right, where the discussion between Dharma in a form of a bull and earth in a form of a cow is happening, right, while Parikshit Maharaj is on a tour of his kingdom. And it is also explained by Acharyas that this discussion is not visible to the common eyes. Right, they could not see or hear this discussion. Only Parikshit Maharaj was able to hear the discussion and see what is it happening exactly between the cow and bull in a form of a Dharma and earth. Right, so the first shloka, Dharma Uvacha. Anyone want to read the translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Raju Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Translation. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why you are covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the Dharma Uvacha says in Kasid Badre Namayam Atmanaste Vichayasi Mlate Syan Mukhena Alakshe Bhavitim Ata Antaradim Dure Bandum Sochasi Kanchanamba. So the Kanchanamba is the word where it is related to, the Dharma is the Dharma is calling cow in the form of a earth Kanchanamba. So Kanchanamba is literally translates to the mother. So, in English they say madam kind of thing, but it is actually translation which talks about mother. The Kanchanamba is the word which is used by the Goswami here, right? And from the very first shloka itself, it is very, very clearly evident on what are the significances or symptoms of Kali, right? So one of the very, very, very interesting symptom of Kali is that which Dharma questions at a very vast shloka. Dharma says, are you suffering from some internal diseases, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in the distant place? So it is one of the symptoms of a Kali Yuga where people are all distanted, they're all not nearby, right? Why to talk about the extended families? In the same families, you see that father is living in some country, mother is living in a different city, children are living in somewhere else, right? So it is a very, very evident how the Bhagavatam predicts about Kali Yuga 5,000 years back, and we could see that in today's world how things are happening, right? And Shloka 20 translation. Hare Krishna. Anyone want to do that?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Akinchen Prabhu. Go ahead.
I have lost my 3 legs and I am not standing on one only. I am now standing on one only. Are you lamenting for my state of existence, or are you in grief, anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat eaters will exploit you? Are yes, or are you in the sorry, Prabhu? Are you in a sorrow plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings, because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to infamine and drought?
Thank you, Prabhu. So if you look at this shloka, very, very important shloka, and Dharma points out at 4 things to cow. Now, what is the reason for your lamentation? And Dharma talks about 4 important things. Number 1, are you lamenting for my state of existence? Dharma is saying, are you unhappy? Are you looking like this? Is it because how I am, my state of existence? So this Asheras explains that cow is such a great living being, right? So irrespective of whatever its state is, it worries about others, right? So but that's exactly what Dharma is asking the cow. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? Are you unhappy because why I am like this, right? So that's point 1. And second one, are you in a great anxiety because henceforth the unlawful meat eaters or mlechas will exploit you, right? That means the meat eating will increase. The third thing, are you sorry? Are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificing offering, because no sacrifice are being performed at present? So imagine 5,000 years back, Dharma is saying to Earth, Mother Earth, that sacrifices are not being performed for the sake of demigods, right? And the fourth one, are you grieving for living beings because of their suffering due to famine and drought? Right? It is very, very evident that Kali Yuga symptoms are already significantly increasing 5,000 years back itself, right? And all 4 of them, which Dharma is pointing out to Mother Earth, we could see them increasing rapidly day to day in today's society. right? All these questions what Dharma is asking Earth, Mother Earth, and what Mother Earth will reply in the next upcoming shlokas. You will see that very, very evidently that in today's world we see them in our day-to-day life, and these are all predicted long back. Shloka 21, and Dharma goes on explaining and asking further questions to Mother Earth. Are you feeling compunction for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Or are you unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by Brahmanas addicted to acts against the principles of religion? Or are you sorry to see that Brahmanas have taken shelter of administrative families that do not respect Brahmanical culture? 22. Translation. Further questions asked by Dharma. The so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. Are you now lamenting this disorder? Now the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations of for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc. And they are inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? We talk about Ahara Nitra Bhaya Maithunamsha. So it is discussed in this shloka, 5,000 years back, how people are now, indulge in the materialistic activities and not following the Dharma. Right? 23. O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, incarnated himself as Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna, just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence. You are probably now thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in their absence. 25. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time which conquers the most powerful might have forcefully taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. So with this, Dharma concludes all his questions to Mother Earth. Right, so he asked so many questions. Why are you like this? He put so many questions forward, and he finally also said that Lord Hari appeared on this earth in the form of Lord Krishna, and then all his activities are transcendental. He tried he removed all the burden on you. Then what happened after his disappearance from this earth? Are you bereft of all those activities? What happened? Why are you feeling bad? Is what Dharma is asking the cow, and we'll talk about some important points. So here, why bull and cow, right? Why was bull and cow used? So the explanation given here. The bull is the emblem of the moral principle, and the cow is a representative of the earth, right? So Prabhupada explains in the purport that when bulls and cows are in joyful mood, it is to be understood that the people of the world are also in a joyful. Why is that? Because Prabhupada goes explaining that bull is source of getting all the rice grains for us, plowing the field. In those days, probably nowadays we have all the tractors and the machineries, but those days, right, without bulls there was no cultivation happening, right? So unless bulls are there helping in the cultivation, there were no grains, though no rice available at that point of time. And cow, not to mention with the probably with the milk, right, which is a nourishing factor for all of the human species, even for the till today, right? And a lot of other food items can be made out of cow's milk. Prabhupada explains that as long as cows and bulls are happy, the entire world is happy, the entire humanity is happy. But unfortunately, the today's world, we are seeing how cows and bulls are being slaughtered, right? Just forget about taking the milk from the cows, but after the cow is not in a state where it cannot produce any more milk, it is being slaughtered to eat, right? So it is very unfortunate situation in today's world. Yeah, so we spoke about this. The particular symptom of the age Kali is no family is now blessed to live together. We already discussed about this. So there are sufferings from the internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and the anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy, right? So nobody is near, everybody is far, right? So you want to maintain that status quo, just for the sake of maintaining it for commercial aspects. So things are not very, very natural, right? So which is finally resulting in a lot of internal diseases, and finally people are absolutely unhappy, right? So the 4 powerful points in shloka number 20, which we have already discussed. Another very important symptom of Kali Yuga, where women and children, along with brahmanas and cows, are grossly neglected, and none of them are protected. The men who are supposed to protect their women and children, right? They become drunkard, and they beat their families, they take money, and they go away, and they're completely ignored, right? So they do not take care of their families, which is one of the other horrible symptom of Kali Yuga, right? And the administrative heads as a class will condemn the tenets of Vedic wisdom, and will prefer to conduct a so-called secular state, and so-called educated brahmanas will be purchased by such unscrupulous administrators. There's a very good example. A very good example, which I was actually going through one of the articles the other day, is Prabhujis and Matajis, right? I'm not sure how many of you heard about this so-called very learned scholar called Gopalakrishna Iyer, right? He was the one of the very educated person, or a bureaucrat in first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru's under his government, right? So in spite of being such a great scholar, and in spite of being a great brahmana, learned brahmana, right? I was just going through the article, and I was surprised to see that how he supported the secular state, right? And he drafted something called Article 35A, right, which divided Kashmir from India. There's a lot of history which goes into that. I don't want to discuss that in the interest of the time. But when I was just reading this chapter, and I was reading this purport, exactly, he's the person who got into my mind, right? The brahmanas will forget the Vedic wisdom, and they work under these statesmen or the government rulers, which are of a very low minded, of very low quality, right? And they help them to form certain unrealistic and useless policies, right? And they are responsible for the sad state of this country in today's society, unfortunately, right? And there are some of the symptoms of Kali which are harmful to the general welfare of human society. Right, some of the other points continues. Due to mundane education, brahmanas associate with mlechas, and their quality will get degraded and eventually becomes atheist. Very good example. Again, Prabhupada quotes that a lot of brahmanas in today's world, they are forgetting about the Vedic education, Vedic culture, and they are running towards the mundane education. Everybody wants to become an engineer, or everybody wants to become a doctor, or accountant, or whatever it is, right? And they goes one step ahead of leaving this country and going into the other countries and settling down, right? So eventually what happens is their next generations, they forget the Vedic knowledge completely, right? Only probably by their names after a couple of generations, right? They don't even talk anything about God, right? So only probably by their looks or their names, right? Probably we will have to tell probably these people have the Indian roots, but otherwise there are no Indians at all. They don't believe in God, they don't believe in Vedic culture. So slowly what happens, when the God is removed from their day-to-day life, and when Vedic culture is removed from their day-to-day activities, slowly they become atheist, and they go on supporting the atheistic ideology. Imagine brahmanas becoming atheist and supporting the atheistic ideology, and that is what exactly happening in today's world. We are seeing a lot of brahmanas, right? The so-called administrators are all untrained in the affairs of Kshatriyas. The work Shastra Bandhu refers to the so-called administrator or person promoted to the post of administrator without proper training by culture and tradition. So another great example of how Varna Sankramana has ruined the society today, right? So as per the Varnas, Kshatriyas are supposed to rule because they are born with certain basic traits, right? Basic culture on how they can learn, and they see that over a period of time they learn, right? But today's world, what is happening, as Prabhupada quoted in one of his teachings, right? In today's world, it is like the governments are elected like this way, Shudras, for Shudras, by Shudras, from Shudras, right? So unfortunately, the Shudra class is getting into the ruling of the society, where the entire ecosystem is being disturbed. The Varna Varnashrama dharma is being disturbed. So that's the reason we see that the sad state of today's society is because of all these disturbances. We discussed about this. Therefore, by the influence of age of Kali, everywhere politically, socially or religiously, everything is topsy-turvy. And therefore, for the same man, it is regrettable. Right. So now we get into the last section of this chapter, where Dharani, or in the form of a cow, Mother Earth, is replying to all the questions what Dharma has posted. Right. The very first sloka talks about, and the Mother Earth says, the earthly deity in the form of a cow thus replied to the personality of religious principle in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you two were maintained by your four legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by mercy of the Lord. So Mother Earth is talking to Dharma that, I will reply to all your questions. But, before that, I also will talk about, how you were, right? And, all your principles, all the, as they say that, Dharma stands on four legs, right, in the form of a bull, right? So, in Satya Yuga, Dharma has four legs, right? And the cleanliness is cut off. And when it comes to Treta Yuga, it's only three legs, right? One leg is cut off. And then Dwapara Yuga, other leg is cut off of austerity. And in Kali Yuga, it's only one leg, right? The thoughtfulness. That is what the Dharma is currently standing on. So next, there are 5 shlokas which are very, very important, right? And in this 5 shlokas, Mother Earth talks about the 40 transcendental qualities of Lord, right? There are many, but talks about 40 primary transcendental qualities of Lord. So one of you, Prabhujis or Matajis, want to take this translation. Very, very important. We will discuss about this. We'll spend some time on this.
Let me read, Prabhuji. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Prabhuji, please.
In him reside, number 1, truthfulness; 2, cleanliness; 3, intolerance of another's unhappiness; 4, the power to control anger; 5, self-satisfaction; 6, straightforwardness; 7, steadiness of mind; 8, control of the sense organs; 9, responsibility; 10, equality; 11, tolerance; 12, equanimity; 13, faithfulness; 14, knowledge; 15, absence of sense enjoyment; 16, leadership; 17, chivalry; 18, influence; 19, the power to make everything possible; 20, the discharge of proper duty; 21, complete independence; 22, dexterity; 23, fullness of all beauty; 24, serenity; 25, kind-heartedness; 26, ingenuity; 27, gentility; 28, magnanimity; 29, determination; 30, perfection in all knowledge; 31, proper execution; 32, possession of all objects of enjoyment; 33, joyfulness; 34, immovability; 35, fidelity; 36, fame; 37, worship; 38, pridelessness; 39, being as the personality of God; 40, eternity; and many other transcendental qualities which are eternally present and never to be separated from Him. That personality of God, the reservoir of all goodness and beauty, Lord Sri Krishna, has now closed his transcendental pastimes on the face of the earth. In his absence, the age of Kali has spread its influence everywhere. So, I am sorry to see this condition of existence. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Very, very lengthy and very big purport, as explained by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And Prabhupada talks about these 40 are just some basic qualities of God, right? Though they are transcendental, right? And he also goes explaining, saying, Balramji in the form of Seshanag, even with his thousands of hoods and lakhs of mouths, cannot even talk about or glorify 1% qualities of Lord Krishna, right? Such great are the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna is what Prabhupada explains in this purport, right? And Mother Cow is trying to explain some basic qualities of Lord Krishna, and also now is where she started explaining that she slowly gets into a discussion with Dharma, right, in the form of a bull, that the basic reason for her lamentation is because Lord has closed his transcendental pastimes on this earth, and everything was fine when Lord was there on this earth. And after the disappearance of Lord Krishna from this earth, and he stopped his transcendental pastimes, and he returned to his original spiritual abode, the presence of, or the influence of Kali, in the age of Kali, has vastly being grown, right? And she also talks about some important things which we will discuss in our next slokas, right? In the sloka 31, she says, Mother Earth says, I am thinking about myself and also, O best among the demigods, about you, as well as about all the demigods, sages, denizens of Pitraloka, devotees of the Lord, and all men obedient to the system of Varna and Ashrama in human society. 32 and 33, she talks about how things are currently happening, right? She also says, Lakshmi ji, the goddess of fortune, whose glance of grace was sought by demigods like Brahma, and for whom they surrendered many a day onto the personality of Godhead, gave up her own abode in the forest of lotus flowers and engaged herself in the service of lotus feet of Lord. I was endowed with specific powers to supersede the fortune of all the three planetary systems by being decorated with the impressions of the flag, thunderbolt, elephant driven rod, and lotus flower, which are signs of the lotus feet of God. But at the end, when I felt I was so fortunate, the Lord left me, right? So she was concluding now. O personality of religion, when she's talking to Dharma, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by the atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you were also in the distressed condition, weakened, and your standing strength, and thus he also incarnated by his internal energy in the family of Yadus to relieve you. Right, and we got into the last sloka. So now, last part one shloka, and now when Mother Earth continues to talk about the sad state of the situation, right? So who therefore can tolerate the pangs of separation, who that of that supreme personality of Godhead, he could conquer the gravity and passionate wrath of his sweethearts like Satyabhama by his sweet smile of love, pleasing glance, and hearty appeals. When he traversed by earth's surface, I would be immersed in the dust of his lotus feet, and thus would be sumptuously covered with the grass, which appeared like hair standing on me out of pleasure. Last sloka. While the earth and the personality of religion were thus engaged in the conversation, the saintly King Parikshit reached the shore of Saraswati river, which flowed towards the east. Some of the important points, which are very, very important that we need to discuss, right? So, Prabhupada discuss about the 40 important qualities of Supreme Lord, out of many such transcendental qualities, right? The Lord being omnipresent can be present with us if we want him at all. By his omnipresence, he can always be with us if we are attached to his devotional service by hearing, chanting, and remembering, etc. There is nothing in the world with which the Lord is disconnected. The only thing we must learn is to excavate the source of connection and thus being linked with him by offenseless service. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical, and no one who chants the holy name of the Lord in the offenseless manner can, and one who chants the holy name of the Lord in an offenseless manner can at once realize the Lord is present before him, right? So there were chances of separation. This is very, very nice, what Prabhupada explains in this purport. So, Mother Earth continues to say that, there were chances of separation between Lord as his 1,000 queens. This was talking about Satyabhama also, right? Because the Lord's being absent from home. But as far as his connection with the earth, she says, my connection with the earth is concerned, right? I never missed Lord because his lotus feet is always on me and there is no chance of separation. Even when he's at home, he's outside, he's with any of these queens, and he's performing any kind of pastimes. His lotus feet is always on me. So I have never missed Lord, but I am now missing him because he completed his transcendental pastimes on this earth and left to his spiritual abode. But the Mother Earth says, when the Lord left the surface of the earth to return to spiritual abode, the earth feelings of separation were therefore more acute. So she says, finally she concludes saying, my state of situation currently is because Lord left, and the influence of Kali is increasing on a day-to-day basis. Right. So I think we have come to an end with this. Thank you very much for your time, Hare Krishna, Prabhujis and Matajis. Please forgive me if I have spoken anything wrong and anything which I am not supposed to be spoken. Please, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Dandavata.
Hare Krishna, Dasraj Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. So I didn't see that it's already over. If there is anything else you want to add, Prabhuji, you can add yourself at 8:32. Or else, Prabhuji's Mataji, if you have any questions, comments, supporting thoughts, please ask Prabhuji. Time.
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
It was a wonderful lecture, Prabhuji. Wonderfully presented.
Thank you.
I wanted to connect from the previous lecture. So we have heard that when Krishna has left this, they left from this mortal world, Kali started entering. So where Prabhupada says we have to become Krishna conscious. So my realization from today's lecture is, so Kali has not physically entered, but it is entered into our consciousness. Basically, entered. One of my understandings may not be complete. It has entered our consciousness because Krishna has left our consciousness, basically.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So I was just trying to relate what from the previous session and your session.
Yes, Prabhuji. Very much. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'll just add little bit. Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
I'll just add little, Prabhu. So yeah, that is also correct, Prabhu. What you mentioned also correct, but literally Kali as a personified, he will come in next chapter, Prabhu. Okay, I think you also aware of that, Prabhu.
Yes.
Personally he will come. Okay, in tomorrow's chapter. Okay, and he is there in our minds also, but that is also correct. But how Kali is actually entering in our mind? Okay, what are the ways? Okay, that is going to cover tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
So, in fact, Parikshit Maharaj has restricted Kali. Okay, he saved us from Kali. Okay, how he saved us, that we are going to see it tomorrow. Okay, so there is a technique for us. Okay, if you just follow the technique, we are all saved from Kali. Okay, that elaboration we will see tomorrow. Sorry, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Prasad Prabhu, please stop Kali coming in. You have the power.
I think, yeah, this chapter talks about only Parikshit Maharaj meeting the Kali, right? It does not talk in details, right? Because
tomorrow he will have impact.
Yeah.
Tomorrow he will have
start fighting tomorrow.
Yeah, we will have some techniques. Okay, how do we avoid Kali? We can, in fact, in theory, we can completely avoid Kali. That is a Prabhupada and mercy of Parampara.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I'm not sure, but somewhere we heard that one Kali is residing in gold.
Yes, Prabhu. You will see that tomorrow, Prabhu.
Yes.
Yes, you are correct, Prabhu.
There are 5 areas where Kali resides. Probably Prasad Prabhu can explain that in the tomorrow session.
Tomorrow, Prabhu. Let us wait for tomorrow, Prabhu. I don't know.
Exactly.
You all know everything, Prabhu. You all experts, everything. You have all spiritual knowledge, Prabhu. But let us wait for tomorrow, Prabhu.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Yeah. The 5th place is gold, Prabhu.
I need to hear that recording. Tomorrow I'm working. So no problem, Prabhuji.
No problem.
Prabhuji Mataji, any questions? Any more questions, comments?
I joined a bit late, Prabhu, because of various other things, but to be session is wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Dasraj Prabhu. I will try to see the recording.
I just tried repeating, whatever from the purpose of Prabhupada. I didn't do anything more than that.
But presentation is very good, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Presentation is very good, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Mataji, thank you very much for attending today's class. It was wonderful to see all of you back hale and healthy. Looking forward to see you physically tomorrow in Satsang. Thank you very much. Vancha kalptarabhyascha krupasindhubhyaya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo Nanta Koti Vaishnava Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nanda Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji Mataji. Thank you, Dasraj
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.